Defining moments. That's what affects your legacy. Sometimes it's scoring a winning touchdown, maybe making a sack to rewrite history. Could be an onside kick to open the second half of a Super Bowl, or it could even be a 28-3 comeback. Either way, legacies get shaped all the time in the NFL through longevity and what happens the span of a career. In a game where a two-time MVP faced off against a former four-time MVP, those two were clearly the difference for their squads. Rodgers orchestrated a perfect final drive, even recklessly losing two timeouts, no star receiver, a top red zone defense, and headset problems during his final drive play calling. And truthfully, at his age, time was no longer on his side. But yet he executed and reminded all of us why he is one of the greatest to ever do it, not just at quarterback, but overall, let's say, quarterback athlete that we have ever seen with what he can do. And mentally, he was dissecting that defense in every flaw he could find. While Lamar Jackson with the Ravens needed it, he put it on his back. He helped. He got out. He evaded a what was everyone thought was a sack to put on a one amazing touchdown, and then proceeded to do it again. Two touchdowns on our last two scoring drives, and then put us in position to win the game. Yet, all those performances may be overshadowed because of the final play. 2 seconds left, a 44-yard field goal, and after Chris Boswell missed the PAT when the Steelers have scored, this has set it up for rookie kicker Tyler Loop to end the regular season with a chance to send his team into the postseason as a division winner. But as fate would have it, it wasn't his day, it wasn't our year, and the young guy missed the kick. I wouldn't say wide right, but definitely right. I am one not to bash kickers as I cannot do what they do, but truth is he does need to make those kicks in the NFL. But as a fan base, we should put our arms around this man and let him know this doesn't have to define him. Take it on the chin, get back up, and next season, make everyone forget this moment. I am Josh Kirby. This is the Fourth and Forever podcast, and we're getting ready for the playoffs. So, before we get into the games, because I'm not really going to recap much of what happened. Everyone saw there were some big moments. I'm more going to talk about the results and where we're going forward from here, because we're in the playoff, we're postseason now, playoff now. The matchups are set. So, but before, let's go over some coaching changes that happened this morning, the Monday morning. It is now or past 1 o'clock. So everything that's happened so far this morning. First, on the list, the Falcons have fired Raheem Morris. He was 16 and 19 in 2 seasons, and the GM Terry Fontenot also getting fired. I think this was a good move for the Falcons. I've been saying it all year. The Falcons have been a phenomenal team with tons of playmakers that have under executed time and time again. This is a team, whether you have a great defense or a great offense, it's something. If it's not clicking, the defense looked good, the offensive weapons were performing, but they were not putting it together in a timely manner to pull out the much needed victories. They even look good late with Kirk, but the Kirk's clearly not the long term answer. They need to get a nice offensive coach in here to really scheme up that offense to be a winning offense on a consistent basis and put this defense in a really good position to win as well. Next, we also got the Browns letting go two-time Coach of the Year Kevin Stefanski. He was 45 and 56 in 6 seasons in the NFL. I think this was a good move for Cleveland. Clearly, he's not a huge Shadur fan, and if that's who your guy is going forward, you need to bring in a coach that's going to give him the best ability to succeed. But Stefanski has proven he is a great offensive mind. He is a phenomenal coach, and jobs will be lining up for him now that he's hit the market. I think this was a good move on both portions. I think both teams, I think the team and the coach can come out on better on the other side. I think once again another new coach in Cleveland. Hopefully they can bring in someone to really shake up the culture and create some winning football here. While on the flip side, I wish the best for Kevin Stefanski, and I think he can really do some great things moving forward. Also, Las Vegas Raiders, they have fired Pete Carroll after 1 season. He went 3 and 14, and truthfully, this might be his last season ever coaching the NFL. This team was a disaster. It looked They didn't play very hard. They looked bad. There was nothing about this team to get you excited each and every week. And I just think Pete Carroll's just it's he's behind the times now. I think it's okay. He can walk out. He's probably a future head coach, a future Hall of Fame head coach. But you know what I mean. Probably a future Hall of Famer for what he did in Seattle and just his overall career. Really good he had a really good career. But I think it's time. It's time for them to bring in a fresh young guy. I know last year they really wouldn't bet Johnson, but they better be hot on the tails, really offering some good contracts and some good positioning going forward. Luckily, with the number one overall pick, whatever coach is coming in, they can have a lot. And I'm pretty sure they're keeping their GM Spytech, so they can really formulate what they're going to do with the number one pick and hopefully use it to either trade to go obtain a veteran quarterback that can change his team, or draft Mendoza, start from scratch with a quarterback, and get him a coach that can help him succeed. Next, Arizona fired Jonathan Gannon after a 15-35 career in 3 seasons. This is a team that just underperforms every year. I think they have some talent. I think they need a quarterback change, and if they're making a change at quarterback, you might as well make a change at the head coach too, and get someone that can come in. I think Gannon's a really good defensive coordinator, and I think he will also get a job. I think this is a good move for both parts as well. I think Gannon needed to go back to coordinating. He got the head coaching experience. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets another shot again in the future. As in for Arizona, they just need to shake things up. They want to move on from their quarterback. They want to bring in a new coach. They just need to change things up, get fresher picture in a division that sent 3 of 4 teams to the playoffs, and them being the only one. I think they need to set a new standard. I think that's what this team and organization is going to do moving forward. Now, as in for other couple other coaches on the hot seat, we haven't heard nothing from the Dolphins about Mike McDaniels, but we all expect there's a chance he is going to be let go. But we'll see. They played hard near the end of the season, didn't amount to much, but we'll see what they do with him and Tua. Tomlin with the win, I think will retain at least another year in Pittsburgh. With the Ravens losing, I will talk about that in a moment, but we have not discussed. I think they're having a discussion today, or so at least sometime this week with Harbaugh to discuss moving forward and what the future holds. Could this be coordinating changes? Could this be just a whole new coaching staff? That is still to come. And I think there's a lot of moves still to come out there to see what a lot of teams are going to do moving forward. Titans, as you know, already fired coach mid-season, and so did the Giants. So we got a lot of good coaching opportunities opened up, and I think a lot of good hot candidates. Now, I think the biggest issues, I think there's a lot of great defensive coordinators that are ready for a head coaching job, and most of them would like to go into a situation with a quarterback that is either already proven or already on the right steps. So I think some teams really have to be picky in what they're doing when they bring in these coaches and find a guy that's going to really help transition his team into the future based on what the team is presenting now and can present throughout the offseason. But let me get into the main thing I want to talk about this whole thing that I wear the hat, I got the Wiggins jersey. It's the Baltimore Ravens. So first and foremost, I want to tell I said a little bit in the intro, but Tyler Luke, don't let this get you down, kid. Shit happens. Kickers miss kicks all the time. Quarterbacks miss throws. There was many different reasons. There's many reasons why we didn't win that game. You may not have made the kick, and yes, at the end, that was what we pay you to do. And hopefully, I expect next season you to make that kick. But you know what? It doesn't have to define you, and I'm just going to leave it at that. Next, any questions about Lamar Jackson? They're done. All the questions, they're done. We're probably gonna give him an extension so we can move some money around and help free up some cap space next year. But he's going to get an extension. That was the best he's looked probably all season. He was throwing even the first half he might have been a little shaky, but he was throwing well. He was running at times. He looked like he put it all on his back, and he put us in a position to win again. That no, Lamar's still one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and that performance will affect my rankings going into next season, as in I will more likely than not keep him in the top 5 still, just because I think that performance proves that next year he's going to come out with a vengeance, and we can have a really determined Lamar Jackson next year that hopefully can stay healthy and really do his thing. Next, let me talk about the rest of the offense. Derrick Henry had a rough game, and I don't even blame him. He still hit about 100 yards, but it was a tough 100. This was just a really tough team to go against. This team, their game plan was not to let Henry control the game, and the Steelers defense did their job. Shout out to Zay for two amazing touchdown catches. You caught the ball and you ran it in and you scored and you did what you had to do. Very much respect for that. Shout out to Isaiah Likely, who may not be on the team next year. If that is going to be your last catch as a Raven, well, props to you. You deserve that respect. That was amazing. I would love to see us bring you back, but I also think if you hit the market, you could get some serious money for from being a backup to maybe getting starting tight end pay. So I wish you the best of luck, and I would like to. I'll talk more in the offseason about your future. Offensive line was shaky this game. We definitely let a pass rush in. We were not winning off the line much after the first couple of drives. That was rough for me to watch. I think we really let Cam Hayward and Alex Highsmith have a pretty decent day against us, and those are the guys you should have been prepared for. But overall, they played okay. But overall, that was definitely a downside of the game. Shout out to our special teams on the return unit. Keaton Mitchell having that great return to really put us in a good position on at the end of the game. And shout out our defense. They were battling all game. Wiggins was in and out of the lineup with injuries. Kyle Hamilton went down with a concussion, which would reshape the whole defense. That seeing him on and off the field, I think people have to give him the respect of how great of a defensive player he is. If it wasn't for Myles Garrett breaking the sack record, that guy should definitely be in conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. And if he doesn't win one in the future, I would be very shocked. But it was hard. Our whole defensive scheme played. Rodgers was picking on the spots where Kyle Hamilton should have been, and it's you can say what you want about this defense, and you can say what you want about Rodgers' age. Above the shoulders has only improved since he entered this league, and it has improved every year. When he was in the zone, he was zipping it, putting it on the money, doing what he had to do. That's what you pay your quarterbacks to do. He did what all quarterbacks in the NFL should be able to do, especially with that much experience. I expect Lamar, May, Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, all to be able to do that in the end of their careers, like Rodgers, like Stafford, like Peyton and Tom could do near the end of their careers, like Philip Rivers did for 2 games. He was able to dissect some defenses. That's the props you have to be able to give to just Aaron's mentality. That was a huge difference maker against our defense. I think I think our biggest issue on defense though was once again something we have to address in the offseason. And I don't think it's going to take the draft. I think it's going to take a free agency swing. We need a pass rusher. We need to bring in a guy that can give you at least 14, 15 games of healthy, solid play that can help get our secondary is our strength of our defense. I would say that. I think a lot of people would agree that really analyzes this team. Kyle Hamilton's one of, if not the best safety in football. Malachi Starks is one of, if not the best defensive rookie to come out. He may not have had a lot of flashy plays, but his consistency is almost unmatched. Nate Wiggins has become a top corner in the league. Awuzie, if we re-sign him, he let up that last touchdown, but overall has had a really standout, shockingly good season. Darius Washington, who's only played a couple games, has come back from injury, filling in for Kyle Hamilton. He's a real strong player, but he's not a starter and he's not Hamilton, and it's not fair to compare him to Hamilton. So our secondary, and Marlon Humphrey, he's two-time All-Pro. He may not be what he once was, but he still can force turnovers, and he even though he let up some plays, he made some big plays in that game. It's just what you get with an older corner. Every team goes through it when your corners start aging. They're gonna let up some stuff because they're not who they were, but they're still gonna make plays. Look at Jalen Ramsey. Look at guys like Darrell Revis near the end, Charles Woodson near the end. Like that's just what happens to great corners. Marcus Peters, like these great corners, over time, it's just going to impact your play. It just happens. And I think this team has some questions they have to ask themselves going into the offseason, and we'll address more of that as the offseason uh, happens. But right now, the Ravens have been eliminated. It's sad, it's heartbreaking. And before I finish talking about us, I want to focus on one more thing, and that is the coaching staff. First and foremost, if there was a time to coach for your job, that was a time to coach for your job, and Harbs, I think, did it. I have no real complaints about the play calling, the decision making, the spots we put our team in. I think the coaching staff did everything they could do to put us in a winning position, and it was up to the players to execute, and the players just did not execute in certain key moments, which eventually cost us the game. I don't know if a couple weeks ago when we lost to New England, I did a farewell to Harbs, thinking maybe it was time for him to go. But after watching that game, maybe I still believe that we would be better off finding a good replacement, bringing in someone. But on the same time, I think Harbs did enough in that game, and I think he's got enough support from the locker room that if we gave him one more season, it wouldn't hurt. I think he could coach one more season with this team. I think this team would fight hard for him one more time. If we were more consistently healthy, we may have not have been battling at the end of the year like this for the division. We may have already won it. There's a lot of things you have to question. I do think coordinating wise, I like Zach Orr. I think he fights very hard as a defensive coordinator. But I think my biggest issue with him is both back to back years slow starts on defense cost us a lot of wins. And I think if that's going to be a trend, we can't keep him in the building. I just don't think it's going to be beneficial for our team. And then Todd Monken, maybe it's time to switch up the offense again. Not saying Monken is an issue, but I can say the play calling on offense has been inconsistent a lot of the years, a lot throughout the year. And even last season, there was times where I was questioning the play calling. Maybe move outs, maybe a change of running backs coaches. Clearly, I don't like the utilization of Derrick Henry this season. Maybe get a new pass rush linebackers coach. Maybe just some switching up some coaching staff might be good. But truth being told, if the Ravens keep Harbaugh, I'm okay with it. If the Ravens let Harbaugh go, we better find a damn good replacement because he would be hot on the market. Someone more likely than not will bring him in for interviews, and if not this year, next year he will have a new coaching job. So, are we ready to see that? Maybe not. Now, let's talk about the actual playoff teams. So, I have ranked my playoff teams, and I know normally I'll drop a ranking later in the week, but I'll probably cut that up and then put it on a TikTok later. So, but I just want to give them to you straight up. Here's how I see. Excuse me. Here's how I see the 14 teams going to the playoffs ranked. At number 14, we have the Carolina Panthers. At 8 and 9, there's nowhere else I can put you. I don't think you're a very good team. You play the Rams first, which you may have beaten this season, but I don't see you doing it again. I don't trust the quarterback, but I do like the wide receivers. I think they're big bodies, they're strong. They can give the secondary some fits, but I just don't trust the quarterback enough. And this defense, I don't trust enough either. I think they're easily the 14th ranked team, but if they pull off the upset, props to them, but they're not going farther than that. But I think they're in and out. At 13, I have the Steelers, and it's no disrespect to the Steelers. I think a lot of it has to do with poor matchups for this team. I think if this team faces any good pass rush at any point in the playoffs, it's over for them. They play the Texans first. I, a lot of this ranking does have to do with the matchups they're playing against. I just see them going in, and that's not being a pretty game for this offense. This pass rush is going to get home. Aaron Rodgers is going to get hit. The more uncomfortable Aaron Rodgers is, the more likely Aaron Rodgers is not to perform as well, which means the Steelers will not win if Aaron Rodgers cannot perform. He is make or break on this team. So if he plays well, I give this team a chance. But if he gets rattled and doesn't play that well, then the season's over for the Steelers. I don't trust this defense long term either. TJ Watt was good, but he still was relatively insignificant in that game. I mean, he got a really nice interception, but it was off a deflection. But overall, he has not had a standout season like he's had in the past. Some of their other players have really been, I think, better members of that defense. And like I said, with old corners, even to safety, Ramsey was really good transitioning to safety, but he still showed some liability issues out there. I think this team can easily get beat over the top. And once again, in the matchup, the Texans have an offense that, if they want to, they can air it out and beat you over the top if it's all clicking and working. But at number 12, I have the Packers. It's a team that I predicted to go to the Super Bowl, represent the NFC. But without Michael Parsons, and I just think the air has been sucked out of this organization. They've lost a handful of games in the end of the season. They ended up locking up the seventh seed and couldn't do better than that. That's rough. Another year of the seventh seed. I think this team is just not in the position they were entering this season. And I really do believe losing Parsons took a lot of wind out of the sails, and them having to enter the playoffs in the seventh seed and then go to Chicago and play a division rival, which I just think that's just not that's a bad matchup for them right now. The with the with the turnovers the Bears can force and the overall offensive firepower they have, it's just a bad matchup for the Packers. They got to come to Chicago. I just think the Bears get a win here. But either way, that's why I got them at 12 and I got the Chargers at 11. Chargers at 11 are mostly because of injuries across this team. They're one of the more banged up teams entering the playoffs. Even though I love Herbert and I'm a big Harbaugh fan, I just think stacking up against these other teams based on a lot of other teams are a lot healthier going into the postseason. They just don't match up well with a lot of teams. They're gonna have to go on the road. They're gonna have to travel. I just don't think it adds up for this team very well, especially their first matchup being against New England. Next, I got the Texans at 10. This is because their offense, not because their defense. This is the team that's ranked at 10th that if they go to the Super Bowl, I wouldn't be shocked. They have one of the best defensive, they have probably the best defense entering the postseason, and they have a really talented young quarterback with playoff experience that some of these young teams don't really have as much. CJ Stroud has played in playoff games, and he has won playoff games in back to back his rookie and his sophomore season. So, him doing it again, I would not be shocked. Um, him and D'Amico Ryans are doing what I remember Harbaugh and Flacco doing. Maybe it's not the year for the Texans, but I definitely think this is a unit that going forward is going to be a threat. And it can the more wins they stack in the playoffs, I think the more dangerous this team gets. But I have the Jags at 9. Jags won the division. I'm giving them the respect. They're a formidable team. They have Trevor Lawrence has some playoff experience, but not always great. He had that big comeback against Herbert, but he's the one that put them in the hole. Just overall, I think this team is still, I think still even after a great regular season, it's a team that I don't know if I trust in the postseason. They're just playing against a lot of tough defenses, and they're gonna have to put it together almost a perfect game plan to win. I don't think this team can win ugly. This team has to be clicking on all cylinders to win, and I think in the postseason you see more ugly, crazy games than you will just straight up we're gonna dominate and win. I think it's gonna be hard for them. Next, I got the Bills at 8. I think the Bills, I put them here solely because of Josh Allen. I think this is a team that easily could be in the AFC Championship or the Super Bowl just based on their quarterback being probably the best quarterback entering the playoffs. You can debate between May and Stafford, but if you put overall recent success and the abilities they can do, I mean, Josh has that running aspect that Stafford does not have, and Josh has the experience that Drake May just does not have. So, arguably the best quarterback entering the playoffs. I think it's holds a lot of weight, and that gives me, I think, a big edge in round one of the playoffs. Number 7, I got the Eagles. Inconsistencies why they're at 7. Pedigree is also why they're at 7. I could drop them a lot lower for how inconsistent they've been, but also I think it's hard for me not to put them almost higher when I debate it, just based on the championship pedigree that's here. They've been in 2 Super Bowls since the 2020s and within the 2020s, and they won one. And Hurts, in big moments, he sometimes shows up the best. So this is a team that I could see them lose round one in the playoffs, or if they're in the Super Bowl again, I wouldn't be surprised. Next 6, I got the Patriots. It's a young team. I do hold that against a lot of teams in the playoffs, but entering the playoffs, Drake May is playing at a phenomenal rate. He has a chance to either be MVP or at least come up runner up in the MVP race, which he more than deserves. This team is definitely, I think, overachieved this season, and I think you'll see it in the playoffs. It kind of, I wouldn't say get exposed, but we can see a little more truth when it comes to what this team is doing moving forward. And I think whether they win or lose, this is a successful season, and I can't wait to see what this team does next year. Next, I got the Broncos at 5. I think them locking up the number 1 seed solidified them as a minimum fifth best team entering. It's so important. They're forcing every team to come to Mile High, and that's not an easy place to play. They have a really good defense, probably the second or third best defense in the postseason. They have, in my opinion, maybe the best coach in the playoffs. You can, there's a lot of debate. You can really debate it, but based on legacy wise, it's either him, Sean McVay, and or Kyle Shanahan. That's probably the guys you're more Tomlin. That's probably the guys you're putting up. When it comes to postseason success, Sean Payton's kind of the guy you really lean on when you look at the teams he brought to the Super Bowl and all them Saints team he brought to the playoffs, which I would say were not nearly as good as some of the other teams, as at least the Rams team that Sean McVay took to the Super Bowl 2 years with a win, or the Niners teams that were stacked both times they went to the Super Bowl and lost with Kyle Shanahan. So I would say arguably the best coach, at least the best coach in the AFC. So I think that's a huge advantage. I just want to see how Bo Nix plays. I think that's my biggest question mark is how is he going to play and what would be his second playoff game of his career. Next, you got the Chicago Bears at number 4. I love everything about this team. I think the quarterback, even though he had a rough game against the Lions, overall though doesn't turn the ball over often. He doesn't throw picks. Really, he most passing yards in the Bears franchise in his second year. Impressive. Coach Ben Johnson has brought more than enough out of him. It's been amazing. I just there's not much to dislike about this team except for they're young and this defense. If it doesn't force turnovers, then it's a bad defense. This team just happens to be able to force a lot of turnovers, which is giving their offense extra possessions, which helps them win so many more games. Which honestly is going to be the difference maker in the playoffs. At number 3, I got the Rams. I have the Rams slightly above the Bears, and it's based on respect of playoff experience. Stafford has playoff experience now, especially after winning a Super Bowl. Sean McVay has plenty of playoff experience with 2 Super Bowl appearances. You got to give experience to this team. Their weakness is their secondary, but they have a good defensive front. They have a high scoring offense. They could win a. They've proven they can win a shootout, but they have to score to win. So matchups is going to be key for them to make it further in this. But if they can get favorable matchups throughout the playoffs, the Rams could represent the NFC, and I wouldn't be shocked. Number 2, I got ranked the 49ers. It was them or Seattle. That's they were the one and they were going to be the 1 and 2 seed after Saturday night in a phenomenal game, but Seattle proved to be the better team, so the Niners will be the second best team entering the playoffs. But I don't love their odds to make the Super Bowl for the main fact is I think they may have to meet Seattle again, and if they do, I think Seattle will beat them again. I think this team is just not built to take on a defense like that, and their defense, if it turns into a shootout, that defense will bend and break. Why the Seahawks defense, even if it bends a little bit, it will not break. That's why Seattle's at number second best defense entering the playoffs is at least how I would put it. Second or third, you can debate them with Denver, but I think they're the second best. Quarterback is if he shows up in big moments, he can be a little reckless, but he's proven he's got a real connection with his team and real connection with his players, and he's really rewritten his history in his whole career. And it's I just got to give all the props to all 14 of these teams, but especially to what Seattle has done this season. They have exceeded expectations. I think this is truly the best team entering the playoffs. Now, with that being said, time to go into my predictions for the playoffs. First and foremost, I got the Rams over the Panthers. I think the Rams are going to go to Carolina. I think they are going to have a tough fought game at the first 3 quarters and then pull away in the fourth and really stamp their name. It's going to be a Puka Nakua heavy game, and I think T Mac and Leggette's going to look good on the other side. But I think it's really playoff experience here is going to mean everything, and the Rams are going to beat the Panthers. Next, I got the Bears over the Packers. Packers coming into Chicago. I think the Bears are the better team. Packers do a lot of things I like, but like I said, without Micah Parsons, I think the wind's just out of their sails. I don't think this team is. I think this team is already defeated, and they haven't even played the game. They haven't even played a postseason game yet. I got the Bills over the Jaguars. I love the Jags, like what they were able to do. I think they've found their guy. I think Trevor Lawrence is a starter in this league. He has proven he's definitely not a bust. I think Leo Combe has been one of the better young coaches in the league, potential coach of the year candidate. This defense has played really hard. I like what this team puts out, but the truth being told, playoff experience matters. And when you have the best quarterback, more likely not entering the playoffs, you put your money on the best quarterback entering the playoffs. That's why I got Josh Allen leading the Bills to victory. No matter how the game looks, it's going to be a Josh Allen game. Next, I got the Niners over the Eagles. Now, the Eagles are going to come and they're going to show some stuff. And if the Eagles pull out the victory, I wouldn't be surprised. But I just think based on consistency, the Niners have put out more consistency over the season. Eagles defense may be better than the Niners defense, but I just don't think the Eagles got it this year. Plus, they are hosting the game. Philly is a tough place to play, but I think the Niners they've overachieved this season, and it's overachieved because they're a really good, well coached team. And I think with less chaos in the building and more a lot of pride and feeling of accomplishment, it can carry this team really far. And I think they're going to beat the Eagles. Next, I got the Patriots over the Chargers. I just don't think the Chargers are healthy enough. I think this Chargers was 100% healthy entering the playoffs, and their offensive line was good, and their defense was fully healthy, and everyone was just 100%. I think they could win the game. But truthfully, with the way Drake May is playing, like, truth is, like, I mean, there's a reporter that said it this year. Drake May hasn't played a bad game this season. And for you to expect that he's just going to fall apart in the playoffs, it's understandable because it happens a lot to young guys. But I don't expect it when he's playing at the level he's playing, and I think he's just got the poise of a winner. So I think they'll beat the Chargers, and they'll have to wait until next year to try again with Harbaugh and Herbert. And then finally, on the Monday Night Showdown, I have the Texans over the Steelers. I think this is self-explanatory. Texans defense is just going to eat alive the Steelers offense, and C.J. Stroud, D'Amico Ryans, back-to-back years with playoff appearances, back-to-back playoff wins. I think they continue that streak this season. With that being said, that brackets will move on, and the next matchups in my predictions would be the Bills would play the Broncos, the Texans would play the Patriots, Niners would play the Seahawks, and the Rams would play the Chicago Bears. If that's how it's going to be, then more likely than not, it was going to be, I think, Texans are going to beat the Patriots, as in that defense is going to really get after a young quarterback, and I think it's going to I think that the Texans are just really favored in that matchup. I think it really favors them. The offensive line is more the weakness of the Patriots, definitely not the biggest strength. Texans defense is clearly their strength. And then I have Denver over the Bills. I think Josh Allen goes in there, plays a really tough game, but when it comes down to it, I think being able to play at home is the difference for Denver, and I think this defense will be able to keep Josh Allen more contained than others, and I think this offense will be able to be very consistent and dominate over a porous defense of the Bills. So the matchup would then be the Texans versus the Broncos in the AFC Championship game. While on the NFC, I got the Rams going to Chicago, with Chicago winning that game. I think the Rams are a really good team, but I think with the lackluster of their DBs, I think the Chicago being at home gives them a huge advantage. They can run the ball really well. They have a turnover prone defense, which is better in potentially cold weather games. And the secondary is not that good of the Rams, and I think Chicago could really tear it apart with a good offensive scheme. But like I said, they can run the ball really well too. I think the Bears could pull off two playoff wins and really establish themselves long term in the NFL after that. While on the other side, I think Seattle's going to beat the 49ers. I think that would be the matchup. Niners have to go to Seattle again. And if they play again, I'm giving it to Seattle. I think Seattle's the better team. I think they got the better defense. I think I trust the coaching staff a little more based on the players they're able to put out there. And truth being told, I think it's Darnold's time to shine. I think Darnold has a better chance of looking good against the 49ers defense than Purdy's going to look against this Seattle defense. Meaning the NFC Championship game would be the Chicago Bears going to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. Meaning in those situations, I think it's not an obvious outcome, but I think based on the matchups, what would happen is because they're in Denver, because they're home, because Sean Payton is such a phenomenal coach, Texans will lose in Denver, and Denver would move on to represent the AFC for this year's Super Bowl. While on the other side, Chicago goes to Seattle, and I just truthfully think that defense is going to give Ben Johnson problems, going to give Caleb problems, and Sam Darnold is going to be able to pick apart a defense that, if they don't force turnovers, isn't that good. So that is going to be Seattle is going to defeat the Chicago Bears home. So we will have the number one seed versus the number one seed, the Denver Broncos versus the Seattle Seahawks in the Super Bowl. And in that matchup, I would have the Seahawks winning with someone on the Seattle's defense probably winning MVP. Those are my predictions. Obviously, if I'm wrong about any of my predictions in round one, I will change them throughout the season. But hey, postseason football's here, guys. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. Be excited for postseason football. The first matchup is going to be the Rams going to Carolina. So let's get ready, guys. Thank you for being a part of all of this all season. The For the Forever podcast will not stop in the postseason, will not stop in the off season. I am so happy to be able to do this and get everyone involved and connected. Hopefully, it just the following will keep growing, and hopefully we have a really great off season. And most importantly, let's have this postseason be fun, exciting, and the Super Bowl be one of the best we've seen. No Chiefs in it, which would be a nice change of pace. My girlfriend has actually, since we've been together, she's only ever watched the Chiefs represent the AFC in the Super Bowl, which is it's pretty crazy. And I told her, I said, no, don't worry, there is life. There is a time when the Chiefs didn't do it all the time. So now she gets to experience that. But just on that note, everyone has a great rest of your day, and thank you.